For me, that's going to be the worst thing about listening back to this.
I don't.
Is sparing my own voice for 40 minutes.
The only ones I listen back to are Mandy's are hysterical, aren't they?
Mm.
She's pretty hysterical.
I remember listening to Kirsty's for the first time I was at the gym and I listened to it and it was bloody brilliant. That was
Some
a
of
good
them are
one.
really good fun.
A bit closer.
Yeah,
Is it?
I have
Please.
literally. Mine's that I
Right.
have to.
We ready?
An artist. Yeah, let's go for it.
Hello.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. My name's Tiffany and I'm a counsellor that works and lives in Clevedon.
Woohoo!
Woo!
And you also do some charity work by doing some work for our charity.
Yes, I do. I work 1 day a week for Somewhere House Somerset. Yes, thoroughly enjoying that.
Are you busy, as in counselling busy?
Yeah, so in my private practice, I work Tuesday to Friday, and at the moment, I've got a full caseload. So busy is good, but it just means making sure I'm taking care of myself.
I don't think people often think that way, do they? That the counsellor needs to be looked after.
No, I think unless you're in the profession or you've been on the other side of the profession, you don't really know the ins and outs of what goes on in counselling. So I think if you are a counsellor, what's drilled into you from the very beginning of your training is self-care, 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 taking care of yourself. Because ultimately, we do a lot in holding some of this stuff in these sessions. We have to take care of ourselves.
But do all courses do that? Because I don't know that they do. I think sometimes they're not as good at that as.
Yeah,
because you went to Western, didn't you?
Yeah, so I trained at Western. So UCW is where I'd done my foundation degree, and then I went on to do my bachelor's. It was an important role there, but from what I've heard, it's not drilled in as much everywhere else. No.
So what does that mean? What does self-care and looking after yourself mean to you?
So for me personally, there's a massive part of my life which I dedicate exercise to. For me, that is playing football, so women's football. That is a huge part of my own self-care, essentially, because that's time that I'm just me. I'm not a counsellor. I'm not a wife. I'm not a mum in those moments. I'm just an individual woman. And of course, having a little bit of a physical outlet in terms of playing football really, really helps me in that sense as well.
How long have you been doing it?
I went back to football in October 2023, so just over a year ago, and I'd been out of the game for 70.
What? So did you play as a kid?
Yeah, so I played as a kid and absolutely loved it. I was the biggest tomboy growing up. Played probably from the ages of like 10, 11. Left when I was 16 when I got into boys and thinking I was a little bit too cool to be a part of something like football. And to be honest, I missed it my whole life since. Just didn't have the balls to go back. Did not have the balls.
So how did you get back?
For a long time, I felt if I went back to football, I would be seen as masculine.
And you're the least masculine person.
Thank you, darling. Thank you. Or like in a weird way, I thought my husband's not going to find me attractive anymore if I'm playing a masculine sport and I'm getting all rough and ready on a pitch. Something come over me one night and I just thought, fuck it, I'm going to just show up to a training session and see what happens. And I did. And it's probably up there with one of the best things I've done in my life by taking that step. Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's a huge part of my life. Our weekends as families, my son plays football on a Saturday, I play on a Sunday. We cheer on my son, my kids, and my husband come and cheer me on a Sunday. Aww. So it is like a real family thing now, yeah.
That's really nice. Yeah. And does your husband play?
No, so he coaches my son's team. So they're under 13s at the moment. He's done that since they were probably under 6s. Okay. So he's involved in a different capacity rather than playing.
And your daughter?
She's just joined my team.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So she's not old enough to play league matches yet because she's not 16. Yeah. But she is training with us every week.
How old is she now?
She's 15.
Yeah. So,
sorry, where do you play?
I play in Clevedon. So the bunch of women I played with, a lot of us played in a previous team together. Okay. But it wasn't managed in a way that we felt supported us and had our best interest at heart. So collectively, we've done a ballsy move, set up our own team.
Nice.
And that's now Clevedon Town Football Club Women. Shout out to the ladies.
I love that.
Yeah. So who manages the team?
So at the moment, we've got a manager called Kirsty. So she's a playing manager. She's also on the team. But we've got 2 coaches, one called Neil and we've got another playing coach called Laura. So it's quite female dominated as well, which is also nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sound good.
I used to play netball when I played sport as well quite a lot when I was
Yeah.
a kid. And I loved netball, and I see these teams, but they're all young women. I mean, I'd have to walk. I couldn't be running around everywhere.
Nowadays, there is no age limit. Trust. There is no age limit. From our team, the youngest player we've got, I think, is about 29, and the oldest we've got is 56.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a massively diverse
Does
team.
a 56-year-old keep up with a 29-year-old, though?
I mean, even at 29, like I'm 34. So when we show up to play matches, a lot of the women's team are really young women. So they've just moved from sort of girls football into women's. So we're playing against like 17, 18, maybe 19-year-old, really fit, in their prime women. But we give it as good as we got. And we're doing all right in the league, to be fair. We're second at the minute.
Wow.
Yeah.
So are they like some of these things that you see on the TV? Do you fake it if you fall over and pretend you've broken your leg, and actually then you get up 2 seconds later?
No, that's only in the men's game. They're dramatic. Yeah, you don't get any of that in women's football. Yeah. But I did miss an open goal actually a few matches back. Absolutely horrified. I fell over as well whilst it happened.
Oh.
And I did shout the F word really loud. Yeah. But I think that dented my pride rather than I was hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a tough one, isn't it, when you play a team sport, because actually you do feel under pressure to be.
Yep.
Have you ever done teams?
I played rugby at school a little bit, but not really, not much.
I cannot imagine you playing rugby.
What's that mean, Andrew?
Just so gentle. He's like,
Yeah, that's a good
most
point.
aggressive person I've ever met.
I only played at school. Nothing more adventurous than that.
To be fair, the girls, so the women I play with are so supportive. Even when I missed the sitter, we would joke about it. Like, oh, do you need to borrow my glasses? Or don't worry about it. Like, we'll practice it in training or try again next week. They are lush. So I think that's a key component to a team working well, is just having support. No one's scolding one another. No one's telling anyone their shit. It is just all about love and feeling safe, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which comes back to the self-care.
100%. Yeah.
So you have football. What else do you do?
I used to do cold water swimming.
Oh, yeah, you did, didn't you?
Oh, I don't know what
you're
come
mad.
over me. I drove to work this morning. So I work on the seafront in Clevedon, and they've got the marine lake. And I can see in the distance people swimming or out on paddle boards. I've got that urge in me to do that still, but it's just the cold water part that puts me off.
But you went in a swimsuit,
Yeah.
didn't you? Well, that's mad. Why don't you put a wetsuit on or a dry suit or whatever it is?
Well, I mean, I used to do that. It depends like how ballsy I'm feeling. Sometimes I go in a little swimsuit. Other times I'd wear a wetsuit, gloves, boots, a hat. I don't know why the hat, because it doesn't really do much business when your body's submerged in water. But the feeling afterwards is almost euphoric. So even if you're in there for 30 seconds, you still get the same feeling. So that's something I haven't really done for a while. But aside from that, it is reading, it is spending time with my kids, things that just make me feel grounded and present in the moment.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can be something really simple, like cooking, which I don't enjoy passionately. But if I've got a bit of music on, I've got a recipe in mind, I've got my stuff together, that is just a way that I can just connect with that purpose in that moment, is making some nice food and just enjoying the process. It doesn't always need to be like gigantic things like 90 minutes of football.
Yeah.
And I suppose you've got a supervisor, obviously.
Yeah, I've got a supervisor. She's amazing. I've got an amazing relationship with her. It's weirdly something I look forward to once a month, because that space is just for me, to bring every part of me. My work, of course, is a key factor in that. But it is just some place that I've got my outlet in a professional capacity. And it also gives me reassurance, any sticky bits. And of course, at the charity, we've got our monthly counsellor meetings, which is brilliant. So that's just another sideline of support, I suppose, with people who also do this job, because it is an individual role, isn't it?
It's quite
isolating at
I
times.
was just about to say, it must be quite isolating, because you're part of a team, whether you're working for the charity or any kind of counselling.
Yeah.
It's you are a team, but you very rarely work together.
Yeah, that's right. It is a very individually held role, isn't it? I think that's what maybe stopped me from, because I qualified maybe 4 years ago. It stopped me from initially going into private practice, because I wanted that team element. I wanted support. I wanted guidance if I needed it. I got to a place maybe early this year that I just felt ready. Like I felt more than competent, My confidence had grown in my own abilities. But the charity does offer me that element of team, which is amazing.
It's funny you say that, because seeing your growth, because obviously we've known each other for quite a while.
Yeah, a long time now.
But seeing your growth is quite amazing.
Thanks, Ange.
Nice. Poor Anne, she's suffering this morning with a cold. So in your private practice, what kind of range of clients do you see? Is there a particular client group, or is it anyone?
It is very diverse.
Okay.
Yeah, so very, very diverse in terms of ages, genders, of course, the issues that are being brought to counselling for people to receive support with. It is super diverse. I'd love to just say to you, it's very set.
Yeah.
This is normally what we're working with, but you don't really know what's coming through the door.
No, of
Yeah.
course. No, I can imagine. And certainly with the charity, we see anyone from, I think it's age 5 up to 95 plus.
Yeah, there is no limit.
No, that's it. And a huge range of issues as well, which is, crazy. Do you feel better now?
Sorry.
Are you back in the room? Bless you.
You do, yeah.
Feels like I've got something stuck in my...
That's all right. We're back in. There's so I shared with some of the football girls that I was coming on to have a little chat about football, because it is sort of one of the biggest things going on in my life at the minute. And a few of the ladies actually shared with me that being a part of a team has massively increased their mental health or their resilience as such. What we got to the crux to is it's not actually the sport itself, it's the connections and being a part of something.
That human connection, the
Yeah.
human interaction, all of that
Yeah,
kind of
that's-
thing.
I think that's magic.
But that's really hard if you're really shy, or you've kind of... Because we've spoke to somebody else today, and they were saying that there is always something for people to do and be part of.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of courage to go and join.
Absolutely. Sometimes that's the biggest step, isn't it?
Yeah. I thought about joining a choir, and I spoke to this choir master. I won't tell you where it was. It wasn't a nice experience.
Right.
They were really judging. Oh, well, how do we know you can sing? I got my grade 8. It might help. Do you know what I'm saying? And it's like, but immediately, as soon as he said that to me, I thought it made me back off.
You shut down.
I just couldn't do that.
Yeah.
Because I almost felt criticised, even though perhaps might not have been criticising me, but it was like, it's just uncomfortable. And I don't like I struggle to do things like that. And people find that quite hard to believe. I'd happily go and sing anywhere.
Yeah.
But I do find it hard to go forward and put myself forward, even though everybody says you can sing and you've got a lovely voice and I've still got imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Even at my age.
Something like that, though. It feels like there's limitations, because essentially we feel like we need to be good enough to be a part of something, whether it's singing or football.
Yeah.
And essentially what you didn't feel in that moment was safe. You felt judged.
Yeah.
The walls went up. You shut.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the thing is that people don't always know that they're doing that to people.
Yeah.
Because most people wouldn't say anything.
No. Did you?
I didn't.
No.
To be honest, I didn't. It wasn't that important to me in that sense at that time. But it has come back and reminded me of the experience on more occasions.
Really?
And I think it has put me going up. Like there's singing groups, a variety of singing groups around. And I thought, I could do that. I probably more would do something on my own than I would do something.
Would you?
I think I would.
Would that be because it feels more safe?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
It's quite sad, really, isn't it? That people feel like that.
When you say that, I've started playing the violin.
Have you?
I'm confessing here. So Mike and Will went up to Bristol and bought me a violin not long after James passed away.
Okay.
I think they thought it was something else for me to do. I used to play the violin as a child. And I thought, it's something else I've got to do on top of my very busy life.
Yeah.
Anyway, cut a long story short, I had the first violin teaching and I got rid of that person, and it wasn't working out very well.
Yeah.
And then I've got myself somebody else, and I blooming love it. I absolutely love it. But she said, we do a Christmas concert together. I thought, I'm not my squeaky violin in front of anybody. Oh, it's worse than that. Terrible.
God, okay.
When I was a kid, I was the leader of the orchestra, so I've come down quite a few pegs.
Yeah, you were good then.
I was good as a kid. Yeah, I was.
Wow.
I know, but it's making the effort, isn't it?
Well, this is it.
Yeah.
You need to make the effort.
When I'm at home, I do practice.
So with your first violin teacher, how come you decided this isn't going to work? I need someone else.
The reason, if I'm going to, and I'll be really frank about this, the person that I was seeing wouldn't work. And so they were doing things, in my opinion, in an inappropriate way. Yeah. Really nice person, lovely person, got on really well, and really sad that I had to end it. But my values and beliefs wouldn't let me do that.
And so that's important, isn't it?
So I've actually got, I'm better off now because I've got somebody local.
Yeah.
And she's really good fun. And,
amazing.
And it's like I can drive 10 minutes down the road and see her instead of driving 3/4 of an hour to go and see this other person.
Christ.
Which is much better, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It works for you, doesn't it?
Yeah. But, you know, it does. And I know people go, your values. But I'm really strict about what's right and what's wrong. And it wasn't right. It didn't feel right for me. Yeah. Somebody's claiming benefits and doing things behind people.
But why should you dampen down those values just to maybe make someone else feel comfortable?
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
Just grab my tea. This is new to me. I forget there's a camera there and I can see.
It's all right. He flicks the camera off and on.
Do you?
Yes. When I'm talking, he flicks it on me. And when he's talking, Mike's talking, he flicks up Mike and then he's back to you.
It's multitasking to the focus.
It is.
Our audience has just watched you take a mouthful of cup of tea.
Wonderful. Spilled on my chin or anything.
Coming back to that kind of being a counsellor, why choose to be a counsellor in the first place?
So it was a really weird way that I come into the profession, actually, because upon reflection, I thought I'd be a really good counsellor because I felt fuck all. Nothing bothered me. Yeah. Everything went over my head. I had feedback from people when I worked on a checkout that I was so easy to talk to and attentive, and that gave me the idea of, okay, well, maybe this is an option I should explore. There was a couple of other factors as well, such as I knew in my future at some point we wanted to foster children. I thought, great, that'd be like another good skill set to have to set me up for that. And then I come into the training and realize that is not what a counsellor is. And then, of course, I have my own therapy and seen firsthand, okay, I am not equipped in the condition I am now to be a counsellor. So essentially, it stripped back everything I thought I knew about myself, all of these beliefs, the conditions that have just naturally been popped around me as such, stripping that back, seeing what's underneath, and then essentially rebuilding that authentic person. And she's thriving at the minute, I'm really pleased to say. But also, I think with counselling, I think it still is a little bit taboo, maybe nowhere near as much as it used to be, but it is really taboo. So within my family, a very long time ago, my elder brother got hit by a car, sadly died. And I don't think anyone in my family ever accessed counselling. So I always wondered if that was something that was available, or maybe they felt they could access, how would that have impacted my life growing up? How would it have impacted theirs? So it's been a real fruitful journey for me in going through not only training, but my own counselling to look at my future and what that looks like. I've seen and felt the benefits firsthand of it. So being able to be in a privileged position myself now and be able to offer that back to others is an absolute dream of mine now. One that I didn't even know existed.
I mean, you and I have known each other a few years because obviously when you first started training and stuff like that. And I see the change in you over those years, really. It's so significant. And it's your personal development. You can see your confidence. You're so much more confident than what you were when I first met you. And so much more assertive, which is lovely to see. And I, you know, it is you see that journey of somebody, and that is part of being a counsellor, isn't it? You have to self-develop. You can't just stand still. If you stand still, then it doesn't work.
No, you're absolutely right. I think for me, the biggest thing is self-esteem. I didn't realise at the time I didn't have much. Yeah. I thought I did. But actually, it was just a facade, like a sort of mask I just got very used to wearing. And then recognised people around me were very used to seeing that version. So I almost tricked myself into believing that was me. It wasn't. I was just trying to be accepted and fit in. I think the position I am in my life is I've developed courage to be disliked, I think. And
Welcome
that was
to
like
my world.
that was like an ultimate threat to me, I think. probably most of my life, not being liked or
Yeah.
not being accepted. I'm in a place I think, oh, fuck it, I'm good enough as I am. The relationships I've got now are so fruitful because of myself.
So what about, because there is such a significant change in you.
Yeah.
And so how's your husband coped with that? Because you've been married a long time.
Yeah.
And you've been together since you were young, if you see what I'm saying, before your growth and before all of your development.
Yeah, definitely. So I met Tom when I was 16. So I'm now 34. So if I'm doing my maths right, we're coming up to 18 years. So we've been together nearly 18, married for 10. So the lucky thing for me is, as I've developed, he's also developed.
Yeah.
I think initially when I first come into counselling, I think he was a bit like, what the fuck? Like, who is this? Who is this person that answers back or maybe challenges or has an argument every now and then? Whereas before I didn't do that. I just sort of molded to what I thought he wanted or other people maybe wanted, to have a quiet life, I suppose. But he loves it now. He loves a bit of fire, Tom. But he's been on his own journey of sort of developing. He's always been quite driven, very ambitious. So essentially we have just chugged along together forwards. I guess the risk is sometimes when one develops and the other doesn't, you can go off in separate trajectories. But yeah, we've been quite fortunate to keep moving forward together.
And that and it's so important in a relationship to allow each other to grow and be who you are and not who they want you to be. And I know that, like, certainly in my own marriage, I mean, Dave is so significantly different to what he was when he first, but still has his own character and and all of that. But I mean, he didn't really get in touch with his feelings until quite a significant time into our relationship.
Wow. That blows my mind, like knowing Dave as he is now. Wow.
Yeah. And I think it's a bit scary for a lot of blokes. I mean, you could perhaps answer this question better than we can. But, you know, for a lot of guys, it's scary to show sadness and loss and, you know, painful feelings. I mean, we were talking, weren't we? Just a quick bite to eat. Just talk. You know, when you come up against feelings from your past or whatever, and it's quite painful, to be able to say that out loud is quite brave.
Wow.
But there is still a stigma with a lot of men. They can't talk about their feelings.
No. And it is massively prevalent, isn't it? I think as much as we like to think we have moved forwards, and we have in many ways, it is still quite stigmatized. Men talking about how they feel, men being deemed as, I think the word is weak. I hear a lot working with male clients in particular. I feel fortunate in myself that I've actually at the moment got quite an equal divide of maybe 50% female clients and 50% male, which I think is wonderful because it does show men are integrating into reaching out for support, sticking with that process and accepting that. But we've still got quite a fair way to go, I think. It is still very much stigmatized.
Well, it's the role, isn't it? I mean, what role do males kind of hold?
Well, it's that whole kind of protector kind of role, isn't it? Protector, provider. How on earth can they be damaged or need support when they're supposed to wrap around the family or their friends and help fix things? I think that's probably how it's viewed a lot.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But I wonder if we do that back to I mean, I don't have a relationship with my family as such, but do you do that towards your dad? Do you kind of have that expectation of your dad?
Sometimes I go to him for advice and thoughts a lot, but equally he does the same to me now. So, which is nice. It's quite fair, I think.
That's quite refreshing to hear, I think. My dad's very much a man's man, I think. And he's rigid as fuck in his emotions, bless him. Rigid as fuck. He's quite traditional.
How much you're swearing in this. I'm thinking about all the beeps I'm going to have to put in, but I love it. It's great.
So the people go said, your editor's going to be working endless hours trying to edit out all the F-bombs.
Yeah, exactly. It's great to have a guest.
He's quite a traditional bloke, I think. And my mum very much likes the role of fitting the traditional wife as well.
I think a lot of people do. I think that's it. A lot of people do like that traditional role. Which, okay, might work for some people. It doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah.
And that's the bit that's important, is that it doesn't work for everybody.
You say that. Dave and I have often had conversations about the fact that, you know, I've run the company, but how he struggled with that to start with.
Yeah.
Because like coming back to that traditional role thing. It's like, and he said at times he felt incredibly undermined. Not that I was doing that, but the fact that the position that he had to hold, but there had to be one person, and it was my specialism. It wasn't his, if you see what I'm saying. So it was it's quite difficult. And then he'll say things like, "Thanks, you've worked really, really hard," and that touches me really, because I don't see it. I just see it. I don't see that in myself, but he sees it. If you see what I'm saying. So I think, I can. It's a tough when those dynamics do change, but I think it's really important that they change.
Yeah,
I don't
100%.
think we should be this one track. I don't think that's healthy at all.
No. I mean, coming back to football in itself. So I don't know tons about the sport, like tons. But last night I thought I'm very much in the mindset in my life now of when I've got an issue, I'll deal with it then. Or when something presents itself, I'll deal with it then. There's no point in worrying until I can do something about it. Last night I thought, shit, I'm doing this podcast tomorrow. I need to pull my finger out. So I'd done a little bit of digging on female football history. And I had no idea the first female match was played in like late 1800s. I thought, that is madness.
No.
Yeah. But apparently during the First World War, when all the men went off to fight,
of course,
women generally had to fill the traditional male roles like factory work and things. And sport was really encouraged at that stage for them to keep morale going, boost productivity, and just have something else to do. So that was interesting for me, because we're talking about roles, aren't we, here? So it does sort of go 360 backwards. And then I come across football. The FA banned female football being played in like professional stadiums or grounds in 1921.
Why?
Because it was not encouraged for females to play football. It was deemed not appropriate for that gender.
Wow.
And I was like, whoa, okay, because things are really different now. But apparently like the 60s sort of changed it when society changed in itself and women started protesting for more human rights as such. But in 1971-ish, that ban got lifted. And since then, the sport sort of grew. And nowadays, I think there's about 3 million female football players in England alone.
Wow.
It's growing
It's
massively,
loads.
isn't it? It's growing massively.
Yeah. I'm real chuffed to be a part of that, actually, because I know at 34, although that is deemed young, and yeah, we've got an older generation of women in my team, I could play for a long time if I wanted. But for me, it's having something set up in place in my local town for younger women to move into. So when they finish playing junior girls football, they've got a pathway if they wanted it to. But it does always cross over again, doesn't it? Those traditional sort of roles, like what's a pink job, what's a blue job as such, and what's in between. So my kids and husband come and support me every Sunday, and they're amazing. It did take me a few matches, that's a lie. It took me ages to feel comfortable to say, yeah, you can come down. But they come down, they absolutely love it. But the roles have sort of changed as well, because now I'll go off to football and Tom will stay at home cooking a roast for when I get back. Yeah, so that's
lovely.
It is dreamy in itself. Yeah.
I still am the only female chairperson of Cheddar Rugby Club.
No.
Yeah, and the only reason I took the position on was I took on the junior position because he couldn't get anybody else to do it, so I took it on. Okay. And then the senior club was failing, so I naturally took that position on as well. And that's right. So if you go down to Cheddar Valley Rugby Football Club, I am on the board.
No?
No.
Angie Clark. There we go. Rugby. Didn't see those two things together.
Well, because Dave played rugby. So as the kids, when the kids were young, Dave played rugby every Saturday. So I would cook and clean and do all of that for the boys, repair their shirts, do everything else like that. And then obviously James played rugby, and then William played rugby, and so it just became a natural part of every Saturday we were down the rugby club. Yeah. That was our Saturdays. Dave broke his back, so he couldn't play anymore.
Bloody hell, he broke his back?
Yeah, he broke his back. My fault.
Come on, I'm going to have to hear all about this.
So I wanted him to come riding with me. And I said, please try this horse out. It's a really nice horse. Dave's fault part was that he thought he was like some top show jumper and jumped this, it's ridiculous, jumped this jump that he shouldn't have jumped and didn't straighten the horse up properly. The horse twisted literally to straighten itself up. Knew what to do. Dave didn't.
Oh,
and he came flying off and broke his back.
That sounds awful, doesn't it?
It was awful. I remember it awful. It was an awful experience because I had Will with me and we were in the middle of nowhere and there was one other person with us and it was like a helicopter job. They took him and as he came out of the x-ray and I remember they go, it's not looking good.
That is not the words you want to hear. No.
But fortunately, it was literally that much close to putting him in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. So he couldn't play rugby after that. It was too painful anyway. Yeah.
It's really sad.
He got on a horse instead.
I thought you said when Dave broke his back, it was playing rugby, like in the thick of it. No, he fell off a horse.
Oh, honestly, if you'd seen this fall, I knew straight away that he'd really seriously hurt himself because Dave never complains. So for him to say, and he looked at me and he said, I've done something.
Yeah.
Okay. But poor Will was only tiny. I mean, he was like, couldn't have been more than 10. And he had to run down to the A38. I couldn't leave him with Dave. Didn't know what to do. And the girl took the horse off. So I had to get somebody at the A38 because we're literally in the middle of nowhere.
What, to like flag down?
At Rooksbridge it was. So he had to flag down the ambulance.
Oh,
the ambulance, but in fact they sent a helicopter in there.
I mean, of all the breaks, that's probably the worst one, is it?
It's a scary one, isn't it? Yeah. And your neck's another one.
Have you ever broken a bone?
Loads. Horses, hips, wrists, hands, shoulders.
Dangerous things, horses.
They're gigantic beasts, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Well, funnily enough, I was up on one of the moors and I got on Dave's horse and he said, you'll be fine. And I wasn't overly keen on this horse. He did scare me. He does scare me. We still got him. And literally within 10 minutes, the damn horse fell over and fell on top of me. And you could see Dave went green with, what have I done?
Because you are tiny as well.
Yeah, and this horse is a big horse. I was all right. I was fine. But, it isn't nice.
So you broke loads of bones by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
Mike, what about you?
I've broke my little toe twice, the same one.
Okay, how? Stubbing it?
Yes, when I was younger, I was chasing my siblings around the house. And I stubbed it on this corner of a cupboard.
That's making me cringe.
Yeah. Went to hospital and they sort of pulled it into place and bandaged it. And I did the same thing about a week later to the same toe. They then had to
broke the same toe.
Broke the same toe, so they had to have an operation to they put a staple in it basically. Yeah.
Oh, never heard of it.
So no, I've got the staple in a jar somewhere.
Magic.
So what have you broken?
Just a wrist. Nothing crazy.
And how did you do that?
Weirdly enough, that was playing football when I was really little. Yeah. So it's been there for a long time actually, football in the sidelines.
Well, it's breaking your bone. I mean, the last time my big break was my hip.
Yeah.
And have I told you this story?
No.
I was in an arena in a group lesson. I had a new little pony and I was just getting him used to other horses around him.
Right.
So I went to this thing and I had this lesson and somebody sadly put a T-shirt on the fence. I didn't see it. And as I was cantering around, this T-shirt went up in the air. The wind took it and went up in the air. And at that point, this little pony went up in the air, did a 180-degree turn. And I had been asked by my instructor to let to put my stirrups up. And I never change the length of my stirrups, whatever I do. Whereas normally you put them up if you're jumping. But I didn't. But she said, oh, please do it. Just try it and see how you get on. So I did. And as a result, I was imbalanced because I'm very short in the body.
Yeah.
I've got quite longer leg and a short body. Anyway, cut a long story short, I couldn't move. I knew I'd done something wrong. And I looked at David and went, I've done something. I know. It was so painful. And I didn't put any knickers on. And the ambulance crew are coming along to cut my jodhpurs off and cut my boots off and everything else. I called Dave, what? Make sure there's nobody around. He said, why? I said, I've got no knickers on.
Commando. Of all the times.
Mortified. So I wear knickers if I go out.
I mean, lesson learnt there.
Yeah.
Learned the hard way, my friend.
Mortified I was.
DL.
And then I was on the ward in hospital with everybody that was over the age of 70.
Yeah, of course.
Because you don't often break your hip if you're young, do you?
No.
Of course.
Those poor people that do break their hips. pain. It's horrendous pain. Horrendous pain.
Good. I'm conscious of time. We've been quite a while.
No, we haven't.
We have.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
what else do you want to talk about quick before you
yeah.
go?
Oh, I don't know. What have we got in the woods? I think I would like to bring up that I've got 2 children. Because I think, although football is a massive part of my life, and I mentioned the kids are my absolute number one. But I had my eldest when I was 18. So I think that's been quite pivotal in my own journey. Because when we talk about this version of me that you met a long time ago, Ange, I think I only really noticed maybe about 3 years ago. I moved straight from childhood into motherhood. I kind of skipped the adulthood part. So I do feel like I am moving into that territory of my life now. The kids are getting a little bit more independent. They've already got their sense of self in motion. You know, they're 15 and 12 now. But I think for me, in self-care as well, it is recognizing that, giving myself a little bit of patience to kind of explore what it's like to be an adult outside of everything else that goes on with life. Because I did feel like I did miss that jump. We skip straight ahead.
And I relate to that. As you know, I had my first at 16 and my second I had 2 kids by the time I was 19. And it's, you don't realise until you are thrown into adult life without having that bit of freedom and all of that
preparation.
Would you do the same again if you? I'm not saying you would undo what you've got, but in any way, shape, or form. But would you?
I think it's really hard to kind of pinpoint that because I don't know any different. I don't know what it would be like. In a really selfish way, I'd hope for more for my kids that they don't go down the same route because it was really, really hard. Having Evie at 18 and George at 21, that really solidified a purpose for me. And I don't know where my life would have gone if I didn't have that because that really changed everything about me as an individual. So looking back, I wouldn't do it differently, but that's only because I'm really happy with the outcome now. What about you?
I would do it differently because of what I know now.
Yeah.
If you see what I'm saying. And that's why, like you, I felt very similar about I didn't want my daughter or my sons to go through that and have kids at 16. It was like, please don't make the same mistakes that I've made. And I'm not saying that my children were a mistake, but it was like, as you said, I was in the adult world and I wasn't even prepared for that.
Yeah.
I think I've always been in the adult world, but being prepared for that bit was like really tough.
Different, isn't
Having
it?
children is a massive responsibility.
Oh God, it's huge.
Yeah. And it's not a novelty. I know this sounds crazy, but when I buy a horse or a pony, I think I've got that horse and pony for 30 years. And that's how I always think about it. When you've got children, you've got them for a lot longer than 30 years.
Yeah, it's like
they are there, and they don't disappear. They don't grow up and go away and don't ever come back. They do come back. Always welcome. They can be a pain in the bum, just like we.
I know we're getting to the end now, but you know what's been worse for me than having kids? Having a fucking dog. Oh my God.
But your dog features on all of your Instagram.
He's a knobhead, Ange. He's the best thing since sliced bread, but my expectations of having a dog have not been fulfilled in the way I thought they would.
What did you expect?
Like nice walks, dog with recall, a dog that doesn't escape from the garden.
I was about to say the same. I blame the lack of training.
Dare you?
It's true.
I mean, I got to take some ownership there. Yes,
all the ownership.
We cocked up there. But what's most pressing is he's got these underlying medical conditions we just can't get to the bottom of. He's cost me a bomb. The poor dog's as skinny as a rake. So that's been more stressful, I think, than having kids because kids can vocalize what the issue is. It's a lot easier to pinpoint. They can tell you their needs. And this dog, he's only 4, bless him, but that's been way more stressful for me at this stage of my life than 15 years of being a mum.
I think actually one of the problems about dogs, and we keep our dogs outside.
Yeah,
and the reason we keep them outside is because they're so much healthier. We used to keep our dogs inside as well, so they used to come in at night. They'd be outside, so they had some fresh air during the day, and they'd come in at night.
Yeah,
and we stopped doing that because actually you could see the deterioration when they come in at night. Dogs are not naturally house pets. We, as humans, have
Yeah, you're right.
And as a result, they get skin conditions, they get allergies, they get all of that. And then as a result, and people overfeed them. You give a dog a human food, the chances are they're going to get the poops.
Yeah.
And people don't realise that. So it's like, our dogs are pretty lucky.
I mean, lucky or just doing it the right way?
Well, I think doing it the right way, if I'm truthful.
I think because he's such a tiny little dog, like I've always molly cuddled. Oh, he's so cute, like I could bite him. But I think what you're trying to tell me, Anne, just stick him in the garden, lock the door, and see what happens.
Don't go to the vets all the time. The amount of money that people spend on vets bills, and it's like it's crazy.
They want $3,000 from me to do this test. So I said to him, "No, can you just give me the medication that you would have done by doing the test, finding out the reason? I'll have that, please." Without doing the test.
If they were in nature, they'd just die.
That's a good point.
And that's the thing. We often want to keep things alive that ordinarily out there, if they were out there trying to survive, would die. And I just think sometimes we're cruel by keeping them alive.
Yeah.
I know that's going to annoy a lot of people, but it's that selfish bit about keeping.
I mean, it's the reality, isn't it?
Yeah. My horse died, and he was the fittest horse I had. He was my competition horse. He was wonderful. He was a beautiful horse. Everybody loved riding him. He was an absolute star. And literally within 24 hours, he died.
Gosh.
And they said, you could take him for an operation. It may work. The chances are it won't. And his recovery is going to be 2 or 3 years. And I looked at myself and I thought, I cannot put him through that.
No.
And it's like, what are you putting your animals through for your own self?
Protect yourself.
Yeah. That grieving process.
100%. You've done the best thing by the horse.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike lets his dog. Does your dog sleep?
He sleeps in the same room, yeah.
Oh.
Does he sleep on your bed?
No. Jumps up in the morning when I get up, but he sleeps on the floor in his bed.
I don't believe that.
I didn't believe it either, Mike.
It's so kind. I don't think that's the case.
Like, oh, come in. Now you're here. You might as well stay.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, thank you very much for coming in.
Yeah,
oh, cheers.
We'll have
really
you back.
appreciate it. Yeah, definitely.
I think we talk about it.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's been lovely. Thank you so much for your time. Cheers.